to resign. Let's bring in Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu of California. He is a member of the Judiciary and Foreign Affairs Committee and a welcome voice here on our broadcast. Good to see you again. And I know, sir, that you've gone so far as to say that Dr. Jackson should not even be in the White House or in charge of the medical unit. But how did this become about the midterms? How do you get political with these warnings to Senator Jon Tester?
Thank you, Alex, for that question. As a veteran myself, I found it deeply demoralizing that Donald Trump nominated someone who had no relevant experience to run the second largest agency in our U.S. government. But on top of that, there were these 20 service members, current and former, and some more, who alleged misconduct by Dr. Jackson. So you can choose to think that they're telling the truth, or you can think Dr. Jackson is telling the truth. But there's one way to figure this out, which is let's have the Navy Inspector General investigate these allegations. I've called for that, and I hope that that happens.
Do you hope that continues to happen, even though he has withdrawn his nomination? He's backed off?
Yes, these are serious allegations, and if they are true, he should not be the president's physician. He engaged in conduct that would be disqualifying for any doctor, let alone the doctor to the president of the United States.
The president is also tweeting about phone calls that he has had this morning with the presidents of both South Korea and Japan, and there are some mixed beliefs on whether the president has really had a role in all the developments in North Korea leading to this meeting yesterday. Are you in any way willing to give the president for what we're seeing happening?
Sure, it's certainly possible. It's hard to tell what goes on in the mind of the North Korean leader, but I do know that in his recent speeches, he did talk about the importance of the economy to North Korea. And I supported and voted for the strongest sanctions ever on North Korea. The Trump administration also did a good job in making sure we had very strong sanctions on North Korea. And I think that had something to do with what we're seeing right now.
What do you think needs to happen next in the next few weeks to know that this both heads in and stays in the right direction?
I've always advocated for diplomacy over war, and I'm glad to see that we have the leaders of North and South Korea engaging in diplomacy. I hope this continues, but it's just a first step in a very long process. We don't have any details of what North Korea may or may not do. We don't know what they mean when they say denuclearization. We don't know what they want from the U.S. So this is just a very beginning. It is hopeful, and we'll see what happens in the coming months.
It has been suggested that the stakes for the meeting coming forth with the president and Kim Jong-un, that the expectations should not be too high. How do you gauge your expectations, what you think will happen from these two men?
I don't want the president to give away the store to North Koreans. I would want to see denuclearization. I think it's important to see what both countries mean when they talk about denuclearization. It seems that the United States wants North Korea to give up all of its nuclear weapons. I'm not sure that that's what North Korea is thinking when they're saying denuclearization. So a lot will come from this summit so we get a sense of what North Korea is actually thinking.
I think you just hit the nail on the head as to what could be a hang-up. So very well on that. Let's go now to the legal battle involving Michael Cohen. I want to play for you what the House Intel ranking member Adam Schiff said that he thinks the reason is behind the president's call into Fox and Friends on Thursday, and thereby revealing his role, Cohen's role I'm talking about, in the Stormy Daniels matter. Here it is.
I have no doubt that the president was giving one marching order for his interview this morning, and that was, you need to say that Michael Cohen was your lawyer on Stormy Daniels. We need that because you've contradicted that. Michael Cohen has contradicted that by saying that neither one of you discussed it. He wasn't in communication with you about it. To do this. So he did that.
What do you make of that?
The president's story keeps changing. Michael Cohen's story keeps changing. And if they were telling the truth, you wouldn't have these conflicting stories. When the president said that Michael Cohen represented him in the case for Stormy Daniels, I think that actually makes it much worse for Michael Cohen, because if he coordinated with Donald Trump in any way in terms of this $130,000 payment to silence Stormy Daniels, that was a massive campaign finance violation. And this gives more fodder for that allegation to be true.
But Adam Schiff saying that you've got to get out there essentially and support Michael Cohen, or at least validate him in certain regards. Obviously, there's been much discussion that Michael Cohen could flip when he makes any sort of testimony. Do you think this was a direct play to helping prevent him from doing that, saying, look, I support you?
I don't think so, because Michael Cohen knows the immense legal pressure he's under. This $130,000, it's pretty clear that he didn't tell the bank regulators the truth about where this money was coming from, what he was going to use it for. Those would be crimes if he signed any documents saying what he was going to do with this money, and it turned out that it was something different from his home equity loan. So I think he's under a lot of pressure. I'm not sure that whatever the president says is going to have a lot of effect on him, because it's really going to be what the prosecutors do in terms of the charges if they choose to indict him.
Michael Avenatti, as you know, says that he is considering filing a libel suit against the president is another way to try to depose him. I want to play for you what he said last night.
I think it may happen in an analogous case relating to a defamation claim we may be bringing against the president relating to his tweet where he called my client a con or suggested that she'd lied to the American people. And so we may very well be bringing that claim here shortly.
What do you think the likelihood of that happening?
Well, certainly, Stormy Daniels' attorney is very good at what he does, and he's certainly free to file whatever claims he wants. It is somewhat hard to get the president into a deposition. I don't know if judges would actually order that, but he's certainly free to try. I think the broader issue here is, were there laws violated in terms of this $130,000 payment to silence Stormy Daniels, which is also a pattern if you look at the payment that the National Enquirer did to former Playboy playmate Karen McDougal, where they paid a lot of money to silence her as well. So I think we're seeing a pattern of potentially Trump or his campaign silencing people with negative information about them during a presidential campaign. Those are violations of the law.